The lower interest rates go, the higher inflation's going to go.
Exactly.
And the higher gold prices are going to go. Gold is it. Gold's been golden since written history. And it's not going away. It's only going to go up. And so, we're very bullish on it. And again, one of our top trends this year.
Well, here we are with Tea Time Talks. And today I have my very, very dear friend, Gerald Celente, on. This man has been studying trends forever, since the early 80s, probably even actually the 70s. He is brilliant. He is angry, and with very good reason. So without further ado, I'm going to let him speak to you about this.
There was an article today, yet in today's Financial Times, about Bezos and that guy who bought the LA Times. And the guy in the LA Times is now saying they're going to go chat. And he said that this way, the people writing won't be writing about their opinion, you're a journalist.
Yeah.
Again, like what's going on, like with the war going on in the Middle East. I subscribe to Haaretz. I pay to go on. I go to the Jerusalem Post. I go to the Times of Israel. But I also go to IRNA, ISNA, Press TV, and Tehran Times. I want to hear what they have to say.
Right.
I go to Arab News. I go to Al Jazeera. I go to Middle East. I want to hear what they have to say. I go to DW, Euro News. I want to hear what they have to say. Nobody does that anymore.
Well, no, and you have to. You want the opinions because you're hearing so much gets squashed. Let's not put out misinformation, which is information we don't want you to know about.
And it's the only trend magazine in the world. There's nothing like it.
We're going to be printing up a storm, right? I mean, the inflation numbers came out today. They were in line. So I guess that means that Powell can drop rates, right? What does all of this mean? It just means melt up, or inflation versus growth, or inflation as growth. What are you thinking?
Let's take a look at the world. Take a look at the top 10 countries in the world. America's doing great compared to the other ones. China's doing lousy because of their 3 years of zero COVID policy. And with every boom, there's a bust. You look at China's GDP before Bill Clinton allowed them to come into the World Trade Organization.
Right.
It's like this: from 1970, 2001, 2 weeks after 9/11, they become officially in. It booms. With every boom, there's a bust. They overbuilt the place. Well, you have 30% of China's GDP is real estate related, and it's a real estate bust. They way overbuilt, and then 3 years of zero COVID policy made a terrible situation very worse. Let's take a look at Germany, number 3 economy in the world. They're officially in a recession.
Yep.
And you go back to 2019, before the COVID war began, they were a fraction away from a recession. And you look at other countries in Europe, they're near recession. France is doing terrible. Italy, one after the they're all going down. India, that's the 5th largest. Oh, they just lowered interest rates because their economy is going down as well. Let's see. Canada just lowered their interest rates 50 basis points.
Well, isn't this all about sticking that soft landing?
They're all going down. They need, again, people forget tracking trends is an understanding of where we are and how we got here to see where we're going. What happened with the COVID war, the damage it has caused is incalculable.
Yes.
Let's go back to January 2020. It's launched in China on their Chinese Lunar New Year, the year of the rat. One country after another, take the United States, zero interest rate policy to artificially jack up the economy that was totally locked down. Oh, except for the, let's see, who was allowed to stay open? Oh, the big chains were allowed to stay open because they own the country. Oh, and the where you buy booze, right? Yeah, you could. Oh, they're allowed to. Liquor stores are allowed to stay open. You know why the liquor stores are allowed to stay open? Because of the high tax rates you got to pay when you buy booze. So the politicians who never work a day in their life could get their dough.
Yep.
So now the whole economy should have crashed. Oh no, it didn't crash. Housing prices boomed. Oh, you pumped in trillions of dollars of fake money all around the world to artificially prop up the economies that should have crashed. So now you saw the inflation numbers. They raised interest rates finally after saying the inflation was only temporary and transitory.
Right.
So now they're lowering interest rates because their economies are going way down. Canada lowered their interest rates 50 basis points, and one after another are lowering their interest rates. So you're seeing gold prices go back way up again. It's very simple. The lower interest rates go, the higher inflation is going to go.
Exactly.
And the higher gold prices are going to go. And now you go back to the United States. Let's go back to 2018 when he was president. The worst equity markets since 1931. What did he do? He forced Powell to lower interest rates, which Powell did in January 2019. Artificially propped up the equity markets. Oh, what happened in September? Oh, we'll forget about that. It was called the repo crisis because of all the fake money going in there and how they jacked the thing up and all the banksters needed more money. And then what happened? Oh, take a look at the economy in 2019. It wasn't doing great.
No,
and then the
wasn't.
COVID war begins in January 2020. So regardless of why it should bust, they're going to do everything they can this year to keep the boom going.
So do you think we're in melt-up phase? I mean, significant melt-up phase? Because doesn't that typically happen before a hyperinflationary event as well, or as we're entering one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's artificial. The middle class is going to continue to suffer.
Yeah.
Go back, by their deeds you shall know them. Trump lowered taxes in 2017 for the major corporations. According to the Tax Policy Center, the 1% got 64% of the benefits of the tax cuts. Not my
Shocking.
numbers, their numbers.
Yeah, shocking.
Number two, he said they were going to use this money for capital improvements, meaning they're going to create jobs by creating capital improvements.
Yep.
2018 comes along. It was the biggest year of stock buybacks in history.
Yep. And we're seeing a lot of that activity today, too.
Got it. And you're going to see a lot more merger and acquisition activity as well.
Exactly.
So the bigs are going to get bigger. And we, the plantation workers of Slavelandia, are going to get poorer.
So if they're spending all of this money and doing tax cuts at the same time, what would you say the implications of that are?
Well, they say that they're going to bring down the debt levels by, cutting government jobs, which, by the way, I'm all in favor of.
Right.
I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. I was on the other side. The people that get government jobs are little lowlives that can't get jobs in the real world and suck into the political system. They create nothing but steal dough. But will they be able to balance it off by cutting enough jobs? And that remains to be seen. And then when you look at the real debt level, no, it's not $36 trillion. What do they say? It's about $260 trillion when you put in Social Security and all the other money that the government owes back.
Yeah.
So it's going to just temporarily, that's why we're saying this year, the coming year, 2025, minus a wild card. And you never could predict the wild cards. Look what's just happened in Syria.
Right.
Minus a wild card, we see the equity markets going up this year. We see gold prices going up this year. The lower interest rates go, the deeper the dollar falls. The deeper the dollar falls, the higher gold prices go up. That's not rocket science.
No, it's actually pretty simple. But when you're talking about those government jobs, since aren't those like a lot of what's getting added to, we just had job numbers out and they didn't look so bad, but isn't a lot of that from government jobs?
Yeah, a good number was government jobs, but you know what the major one was health services. And the other one, restaurant and those kind of services.
Right.
So jobs that pay nothing. Jobs that pay nothing. By the way, the whole immigration issue, again, we only write about the facts. You go into Marshall's, go into Targets, go into Kohl's, go into any of these places. You walk in on the door, help wanted, full-time, part-time. And now you can't, you listen to the people talk, all the even speak in English. They wanted the immigration for cheap labor because they're not paying. Here, I have a cousin whose grandson graduated Sarah Lawrence College in New York City, one of the top in New York. It took him 2 years to get a job. He got a stupid degree, in art history and
Right.
journalism.
Oh, yep.
He's working for Target now, $16 an hour.
Well, that's really having like a huge impact too, because it's the younger people that are stepping up to the plate now and going back to, of all things, cash, which is kind of surprising, but also are buying gold.
Very few, they see the future, but again, the future's off limits. It's not allowed. Here, we're going to be going into the new year, right?
Right.
Go to any of the major ones from the New York Times. They call themselves the paper record. I call them the toilet paper record. You go to Wall Street Journal, $5 a day, you're getting nothing anymore.
Yep.
Not one of them, not one of the major networks, not one will be talking about the trends that will be shaping the future in 2025. Instead, what they're going to be doing, this is what happened in 2024. What the hell do I care what happened in 2024?
Right.
I know what happened in 2024. What's going to happen in 2025? We're not going to tell you because we don't know. Oh, and again, by the way, when I talk about the immigration issue, this is one of a best-selling book, Trends 2000. They changed the immigration issue two times, and I'm Vietnam War era. They allowed immigrants to come in. They changed it because they were drafting all the guys and they needed more labor. Number two, when the whole internet revolution began, everybody forgot this. Again, that slime ball, that murderer. Oh, this was one of my T-shirts when he ran for office back in 1992. Slick Willie, beware of Slick Willie.
Mm-hmm.
All right. He gave us the H-1B visas.
I love your movement and also the sound money movement. We have to take our power back as citizens, don't we? I mean, and do you I think it's possible. Do you think it's possible?
Of course it's possible. Don't we need it? Again, you can't do it without any dough.
But there are 8.4 billion people in this world. And I learned many things from you, but one thing that you talked to me about was how the revolution took just 3% of very vocal people and there was a revolution. And I think what we're seeing around the world is the rise of populism again, but with the, right? I mean, I definitely want you to comment on that. I'm going to stop talking because you had a big
keep
reaction
going.
to that.
You're 100% right. That's what I was saying when you said populism. Just what's going on. Once upon a time, there was a guy by the name of Samuel Adams, one of the founding fathers. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. Yeah, I'm angry. You bet I'm angry. I don't like my money being stolen, going to kill people in other countries. I don't like my, we just gave how many, $7 billion for some company to make chips? Yeah. I'm a big company. We could get money from the government. Well, there's a guy that I don't like so much, but he's Italian. His name was Mussolini. The merger of state and corporate powers, by his definition, is fascism. All right? And that's what you got here. The merger of state and corporate powers. The corporate powers are in charge.
Oh, absolutely. But you've also made a really good point about blockchain technology. And you're the only one that I've heard made it, but I've mentioned it many times. Do we really need these politicians? If we have this blockchain technology that's so great, why do we need all of this central bank? Why do we need the central bank? Why do we need the politicians?
Again, you talk about the central bank. I mean, look at the murderer clown that made the thing up.
Yeah.
Woodrow Wilson gave us World War I, which we had no business going into. I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, Yankee Doodle do or die. Oh, he gave us the Federal Reserve. He gave us federal income tax. and the IRS. I mean,
Right.
look at the clowns that are running the show. And that's all it is. This isn't the country that our founding fathers fought for.
No, it is
Again,
not.
I read at the last rally we had. It was a great one. We had Judge Napolitano, Scott Ritter,
I,
Joe Laurie, others. And I read George Washington's part of his farewell address. He tells the American people, don't love a nation, don't hate a nation. If you do either one, you become a slave to them. His words. Don't get involved in any of these foreign entanglements. This stuff's been going on for thousands of years. Going back to the income tax. Before income tax, the way the government was funded was through tariffs. You look up McKinley, and he said, what do you want? Do you want cheap products or higher wages? Once upon a time, and you remember being up here in Kingston, well, you had Gant Factory up here. They used to make the shirts.
I do remember that.
You remember all of the shirt factories and all of the manufacturing that was going on in Kingston and all over.
Yeah.
All over manufacturing.
And the garment district in New York. I bought stuff there.
Yep. Remember, you go down the city and the guys are going through the streets with all racks of clothes.
Yep.
And then there was a thing that before they had a thing called the Rust Belt. They had a middle class. We had manufacturing here. I believe in becoming a self-sustaining economy. So if Trump does the tariff deal the way he says he's going to do it, and if is a big empty word, the companies in the United States say, we're going to manufacture made in America, that would be a big positive for the country.
It really would.
Again,
It would bring back jobs. It would, yeah.
And again, you remember when we were younger, there were no Targets, there were no Kohl's, there were no Home Depots, there were no Lowe's, there were no Staples. There were things right here where you up here in Kingston, down the street. There used to be a stationery store.
Right.
Oh, there were drug stores, there were hardware stores, there were grocery stores, there were shoe stores. No more.
There are a couple things that I want your opinion on. I want to go back to Germany and what's happening in the Eurozone, right? It seems to me like there could possibly be a breakdown that is already occurring. And one thing we know is no pegs last forever. What do you see in the future for the Eurozone? Do you think they're going to be able to hold it together, or do you think it's going to break apart?
It's going to break apart. I just mentioned here, by the way, in the Trends Journal this week, we wrote about how much money is going into the equity markets and the debt markets from other countries. It's flooding into America. It's flooding into America, and it's more than double what's going into Europe. So again, let's see why it happened. Germany. Once upon a time, Germany was the number one manufacturing company in the world. They were the top of the top. Then what happened? They started when Clinton brought China into the World Trade Organization. Let's go to China. China couldn't make crap before 2000. The deal was this. Yeah, you could come over here, but you got to open up a company and you can only own 49% of it. We don't have the technology, we don't have the high tech, and we don't have the heavy industry knowledge to know what's going on. But you're going to come over here and you're going to show us how. So let's go back to early 2000s. Boom. They were booming. They were selling their Mercedes. They were selling their Volkswagens. They were selling, exporting to China. And then what happened? China got all the information that they needed, all the technology that they needed, everything that they needed. Now, who's the biggest car salespeople in the world? The Chinese. The American and European manufacturers, because they wanted cheap labor so they could make more money, destroyed their businesses.
Yes.
Look what, again, we just this week in a magazine this week about how many people General Motors is firing and how much money they're losing. It's one company after another. They did this because they gave their manufacturing to cheap labor countries. So that's what happened, Lynette. Germany destroyed its own economy.
It did, but I also think that, when they pegged, Germany really benefited and profited from it because Greece and Italy and other countries could borrow at that same rate and
Yep.
buy all of this stuff from Germany. So the fact that Germany is now in an official recession, because they get to call it, when it's a recession. What does that tell you? I mean, I agree that I think it's going to break up. When do you, well, who knows? I mean, timing is the biggest challenge, isn't it? But-
I'll never forget when and I used to spend time in Europe. I'll never forget when they went into the euro in early 2000. And a friend of mine, may rest in peace, he married a woman from Denmark. And her father and mother came over. And they were like, I'm going to say like 20 years older than me, 15, 20 years older. They grew up during World War II. They were all so happy that they were going into the euro. Because what people forgot, they sold the BS.
Right.
That if there's one currency, Europeans will not fight against each other again. I mean, what's your favorite war? World War One? Oh, what was the French against this one and the Germans against that? World War II, they were fighting each other. I mean, it's been going on for centuries, by the way. But they sold the BS that if they went into the euro, they wouldn't have to worry about going to war again. That was the big line that they lied about. And the euro destroyed all these other countries. Inflation skyrocketed, the whole game changed.
Exactly. So if we're looking at what's happening there right now, what do you think the implications? I mean, if the euro breaks up, what are the implications for that? I mean, will all of these countries, we saw it during the sovereign debt crisis, in 13, 14, and they were talking about Greece going back to the drachma. Do you think that could happen there?
I believe it can happen, particularly when you're seeing, as you mentioned before, these populist movements that are going on. Tracking trends is the understanding of where we are, how we got here, and where we're going. One of our top trends for 2020 that we put out at the beginning of the year, January 2nd, was New World Disorder. In 2019, there were protests, major protests going on I'm going to talk about immigration and how it made things worse. There were protests going on all over the world. Mm-hmm. The yellow vests in France.
I remember that. Mm-hmm.
Algeria, India, South Africa, Chile, Colombia, Brazil, all over the world, people taking to the streets because of lack of basic living standards, government corruption, crime, and violence. Facts. So, what happened? COVID war happens. Get back in your house, you can't go protest. Everybody forgot that.
Yeah, it was convenient, wasn't it?
I'm mentioning this because the dire conditions in not only emerging markets, but developed markets. Yeah. People were leaving. Rather than getting your brains blown out, dealing with drug dealers, not having enough money to basic living standards, they're doing everything they can to flee their countries. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Now, that situation has worsened. Look at the data again. It's in the magazine this week again from the World Bank and the IMF about the dangers of the emerging markets, the deep debt levels they're suffering from, and how their economies are going down. Going back to the euro, putting it all together, there's going to be very, very strong anti-immigration movements going on. And there's going to be back to we're Germans, we want to be Germany. We're Italians, we want to be Italy. We're Sweden, we want to be Swedish. You're going to see more and more of that in countries around the world because the immigration problems are going to escalate this year big time.
Everywhere, even here in the U.S. Do you see hyperinflation on the horizon?
Look at the numbers that just came out. With the inflation, it was only up 2.7%, and they're rigged. Everybody knows
Right.
that. The housing prices have gone up, what, 50% since the COVID war? Oh, yeah, but we're not putting that in because there's rentals and we're going to make the lumbers a lot lower. Oh, your steak prices went up. Yeah, but people are eating chopped meat. I mean, they've rigged the numbers.
Right.
But even at the number of 2.7% on a GDP annually, how much did car insurance just go up again? 12.7%?
I mean, when you look at the individual numbers, it definitely does not add up. And
No.
to your point, they are rigged. But you also say frequently, when all else fails, you go to war. And so Are we looking at World War III? Has it already begun and we just don't realize it yet?
It's begun. It began with the Ukraine war. And then again, this Middle East crisis now going on with Syria and the United States, Israel, and Turkey bombing the hell out of Syria now. Again, we just put the facts down. Times of Israel reported that Israel has wiped out over 80% of Syria's military planes, ships, things. United States is bombing it. Turkey's bombing it, and now we're concerned about is they're going to ramp this war up with Iran, and then what? Oh, here, yeah, I'm not making this up. Just 2 days ago, the United States stole $20 billion of Russian money and sent it to Ukraine. $20 billion.
Mm-hmm.
We have now given, according to Judge Napolitano, it's up to almost $240 billion that we've dumped into the Ukraine war since February 2022. As our country is rotting in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you people in Maui where you lost everything? How the hell with you? I don't care. Oh, you people in North Carolina where they whatever, here's a couple of bucks. Shut your mouth. We got to get money to keep the war going. Again, not my language, the language of a real man, like him or not for some of the things he did and didn't do. Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star general, supreme commander of the Allied forces, and 2-term president. The military-industrial complex is robbing the nation of the genius of the scientists, sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. And here we are.
Well, all of these are an indication of the end of an era. And we're transitioning into a new era. I would like, and what about the American exceptionalism that seems to still go on? I mean, do people really believe this? I mean, where are we going? Where are we headed, Gerald?
It's the end of the empire, as I see it. Trump said he's going to punish the people that go into the BRICS. The BRICS are going to keep growing. They've had enough of the United States geopolitical and economic hegemony. I mean, yeah, the dollar's still very strong, but the numbers have gone down by 10% from the trading of what it used to be. And it's only going to become a matter of time. We became the country our founding fathers fought against, the United Kingdom. The sun never sets on the British Empire. We kill and slaughter people all over the world, but you have to say it properly with the proper accent. They only killed about 400 million people in India, by the way, during the occupation. What happened after World War I? The pound plummeted because of all the wars that the Great Britain fought. And that was the beginning of the dollar.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We're doing the same thing. All the wars that America's fought, all the money that we're spending for the military-industrial complex, it's going to be the beginning of the death of the dollar. It's going to happen. Again, we're only 345 million people out of 8 billion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yet we control a lot. And I want to go back to the BRICS for a second, because I think it's really interesting that there are two entities that are really straddling the fence on this. And one is India and the other is Saudi Arabia. Neither one of them have made like the full commitment one way or the other. What do you see for that this year ahead?
It's a guessing game, because particularly with Saudi Arabia, I mean, what do you have? They're doing business with America.
Right.
I mean, And what is Trump's son-in-law? How many billion-dollar deal did he just do with Saudi Arabia? Jared
Right.
Kushner.
Yeah.
So Saudi Arabia is on our side, and they're going to stay there. And the United States keeps selling them more and more military weapons. And so they're going to stay with it. They're not going to. India's a whole nother game. And if India and China get into more of an agreement, that to me is when it's going to change, if it changes. Because again, you have these ethnic, conflicts going on for how many centuries, And
Exactly.
so that, the mentality of that keeps things from going forward. But again, then you have to look at the rest of the world. And much of the world is fed up with what America is doing. And it's going to be just a matter of time. And going back to the death of the dollar, when they start lowering interest rates, the dollar's going to decline. It's as simple as that. The lower interest rates go in the US, the deeper the dollar is going to fall.
So that's actually in two ways. The way that you're kind of referring to it is against our partners, our trade, one currency against the other. But also to your point, when they lower the interest rates, what is that about? That's about creating inflation. That means that the purchasing power is going down. Can they control the speed of that, or are they losing control?
No, they can't control the speed of it. It's a guessing game.
Yes, it is.
Let's go back to the facts. As inflation was skyrocketing in America, we heard the crap spewing out of the mouth of the Fed head, Powell, saying, no, this is only temporary. And then Janet Yellen, the former Fed head, the Treasury Secretary, said, no, it's only transitory. As it's skyrocketing. Did they know it, or they were just lying?
Oh.
Either way, it makes no difference.
Right. Much as they say that they're fighting it, the reality is it's part of the system that we're in. And the more debt we take on, the more interest we have to pay, the deeper the deficits, the more money they print. I mean, all that does is end World War III, end the wars. It justifies the inflation. It points the fingers.
Yep.
Right?
No, they're going to take us to war. I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned about this. And it just keeps escalating. And again, the billionaire is not a penny for peace.
Right.
Not a penny. Not one penny. Could you imagine if each billionaire gave $1 billion apiece, which is chump change for them?
Well, because they could stop the war, couldn't they?
Yep.
So who is really ruling this world? When corporations take over the government, which is really where we've been at, and we've been marching to this tune for a long time, and now we're going to have even more consolidation with the mergers and acquisitions coming up. So the whole world becomes what? One big monopoly?
Mussolini called it the merger of state and corporate powers is fascism, and the corporations run the country. Look at the donations to the presidents on both parties. Who's running the show? Look at all the top corporate people.
It happens slowly at first so that nobody really notices it. And, they keep it hidden for a while so that people don't realize it. But once everything gets to the point where it's just so blatant, why bother to hide it anymore? Because It seems like the public has just accepted it.
The guy that you both remember, who was terrific, George Carlin. You've been warning for years. It's one big club, and you ain't in it.
Yep.
And that's all it is. And again, as you said, it's been going on for a long, long time, but now it's so obvious. Again, let's go back to the turn of the century, but you look at the illustrations about the robber barons.
Yes. Yes.
Who do you like better, the Carnegies or the Fords? No, I like the Rockefellers, I mean, it's been going on. The robber barons.
Absolutely. And also these bubbles, right? These bubble economies that lull people into this false sense of security. Do you see any bubbles? I mean,
Yes.
You're hearing a lot of things. Oh, there's lots of bubbles. And there's no bubbles at all. What do you think with the bubble economy?
It's simple. It's the debt bubble.
Right.
Was it over, how many trillion is it? 100 trillion or something from the companies around the world in debt?
313 I mean, it's a ridiculous number. And then all the derivatives and everything that are on top of that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to bust.
Already has busted the debt bubble with the high interest rates. Can they reflate that debt bubble popping? That was a big pattern shift when they raised those rates so quickly. And I think that, I mean, I don't know, time is going to tell, but I think that bubble has already popped. They're just trying to keep it inflated as long as they can. And I think this is all a good reason to have physical gold and
I'm with
physical
you.
silver. How do you feel about that?
100%. And again, as you know, we have no advertisers. Nobody
Right.
tells us what to say. I'm I'm blessed. I started buying gold. It's either 1977 or 1978. I think it was $163.80 an ounce.
Yep.
And by the way, if there were no cryptocurrencies, the price of gold would be way over $3,000 an ounce now.
Oh, yes, I agree. And all right, one last thing, because have you seen that the CME is now bringing out a 1 ounce gold futures contract?
No, I
1
didn't
ounce.
know that.
Yeah. They just announced it. They're hoping to get approval mid-January. And that's the same thing. It's misdirecting funds so people think they're buying gold and they're just buying a contract. And we all know any contract's as good as the counterparty to that contract. It is about misdirecting funds that would go into the physical markets and maintaining them in the fiat markets. Well, you might disagree with that, and you can.
No, they of course, exactly what they want to do. It's same with the ETFs.
Exactly.
It's but again, no, we're very bullish on gold. Again, look at the countries that are buying it all up. They know how bad things are.
The real trend is still, in my opinion, correct me if you disagree, it's in the purchasing power. Because it does, I have 10 trillion Zimbabwe dollars and I can't buy anything with them. So people get blinded by numbers and they think those numbers mean something, but they do until they don't.
When they're in the market, they're going to do everything to keep their market high.
Right.
And they'll invent anything that they want. Oh, talking about gold. Once upon a time, as we're into the Great Depression, turn in your gold. You don't turn in your gold, you go to jail. They'll do anything they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll do anything they want. They're invested in, they're going to make sure it keeps going higher. So we see the crypto market. That's the other thing, by the way. One of the reasons why, even before, the prices have gone up now, since Trump's got in on Bitcoin over 40%. You have inflation in places like Argentina that's going like 300%, 280%. The people don't buy gold. They buy a fraction of a cryptocurrency because they see their currencies declining like crazy. So there's this whole crypto world that who would have ever thought this would have happened? Well, it's only, about 14 years old or so.
2009, Bitcoin came out, and 1996 was the NSA white paper on how to make a mint.
So that's what's keeping it going. And the people around the world are suffering. So they can't buy a little bit of gold, so they buy a little bit of a crypto because they're losing everything. Again, the poverty rates just keep increasing all over the world. And again, we're very bullish on gold, silver number 2, and again, we're bullish on the crypto, on Bitcoin because of Trump in there and what he's doing. And again, the numbers are right there. It's gone up over 40%.
Right. And they're going to push it higher. But do you think at some point it would actually become a tool of barter rather than just a speculative tool?
I don't know.
Because if you can only convert it back into these, what does it mean? If that loses all of its purchasing power.
You got what you need to pay for what you want. The same thing with gold. You got to turn it in to get the cash when you need the dough.
Well, that's temporary, and maybe this is true for cryptocurrencies, so I don't see it. But some of the things that I realized is it takes energy to pull this out of the ground. But then that energy is stored inside of this coin and used in every single sector of the global economy. It takes energy to create the cryptocurrencies. But is that energy stored anywhere? Can that energy be used in other parts of the economy? Maybe that doesn't matter anymore. Maybe this time is different.
It doesn't. It's only about making money. It's only about the bottom line. And the bottom line is people want to make as much as they can any way they can, and they'll try anything they can. I mean, look at, we're talking about the equity markets. You're gambling in that thing, right?
Right. 100%. It's all just become a big fat bubble, and it's based on the value of this. And when the value of this goes to zero, then it goes to zero. The difference, this is just, well, history plus my opinion, is because this has the broadest base of utility. That's why it's never gone to zero.
Again, gold is it. Gold's been golden since written history. And it's not going away. It's only going to go up. And so, we're very bullish on it. And again, one of our top trends this year.
Right.
2024, golden year for gold. Gold's up almost $700 an ounce since we made that forecast.
And it's going much higher.
Right there. We said it would be a golden year for gold.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to continue. It's going to continue. There's no question about it.
So
because they're not going to raise interest rates.
Right.
They're not going to raise interest rates. End of story.
Right.
We said gold was going to keep going up as the dollar went down as they lower interest rates. So they're going to keep lowering interest rates, and that's going to keep pushing gold prices up higher.
Right, because that's going to keep pushing inflation. That's going to keep creating new money to put into all of these things, right? And this is just a repetition of history as well.
Yep. And again, the Bank of Canada just lowered their rates 50 basis points.
Which is a big move.
Yeah.
It's a very big move. So, they want you to think they're doing it because they can, but I think they're doing it because they have to keep this game going.
Your economies are going to crap.
Yep.
Again, the damage that this COVID war has caused financially, physically, mentally, spiritually, it is incalculable. 9:00 at night up here in the Hudson Valley, I call it Death Valley. Nobody goes out anymore. Everything changed. That place right next to me, that beautiful hotel, the Vogue magazine, back in 2018 or 2019, one of those 5 top places to visit in America. The Kinsley Hotel, right next to me.
Yeah,
you couldn't get in this place on a Friday and Saturday night. They had 2 bartenders and a bar back. Now they got 1 bartender, and you can go in anytime you want. Everything changed with COVID. I'm down the city a couple of weeks ago. Every time I get in a cab, and I go down the city a lot, I ask the cab driver, hey, what time does it start quieting down? 12:30 at night. No old cats out. Only young people between the age of 35 down. All the older people not going out anymore. The damage that this COVID has caused, going back to the economies, they artificially propped them all up with cheap money backed by nothing and printed on nothing. And low interest rate, 0 and negative interest rate. Now that game is over.
So the next one is, but what is there, because we're coming to conclusion in this. I don't want to take your whole day, though. We could, and I can't wait to see you in person and have more time. But what do you want to impart to the viewers right now of what they should be looking for in 2025?
To open their mind up as wide as it can possibly go. And to get in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
In the fight for your life.
Yeah.
Don't, to put yourself into a category, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal.
No.
Grow up. Become a free person. And keep learning. Again, we're giving people everything we can with the magazine. And
yeah, it's phenomenal. The link below, you've got to read it. You've got to support it and occupy peace.
Yeah, thank you. And so that's it. The people, you're in a fight for your life.
We are.
And it's never been more critical in my lifetime than right now.
I'm going to throw something out. I'm going to see if you know this, because it was 1964 when all of a sudden the gold contracts that were made illegal in 33 were legalized again. You knew that, yes?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah. It was buried on page 31 in a little paper between some nicety little things. there were, I don't know if I'm accurate on this, but there were 950 contracts, each contract representing 100 ounces of gold
Wow.
that just kind of went missing. And now all of a sudden it was legalized again. Who do you think held on to those contracts that were, it was 10 years in jail and a $10,000 fine or both, right? But all of a sudden it was okay for all those 950 contracts that went missing, that were never turned in, to suddenly be legal again? I think that's really interesting. I stumbled across that a number of years ago.
I had no idea about this.
But, I don't know. Who do you think benefited from that one? And that was 1964 in preparation of going off the gold standard. But don't worry, because the Treasury said, well, they can't convert it into the gold.
And that's the other thing. We're not allowed to go into Fort Knox.
No.
Nobody's allowed to look in there. This is America. Oh, we kill people all over the world in the name of freedom and democracy, but you're not allowed to see a damn thing that we won't let you see. See, you say you got gold. I want to see it. I pay taxes.
Right.
I'm an American citizen. No, you're not. You're just a little nobody. You got to be a billionaire. Maybe we'll let the billionaires in there to go look.
I don't even think they let the billionaires in there.
I know.
Look.
I'm being sarcastic.
They can't, right. I mean, I don't think they let anybody look. I mean,
No.
It could still be there, but, you got to look at the paperwork, too, because of all of the funny contracts that they created. Do we really even know? We don't. Do you think the U.S., I should say, is going to be forced to prove that they actually own all that gold?
Nah.
Nah.
They'll make up anything.
This is a debt crisis. I think the debt bubble has popped already with the raising of the interest rates.
It's popped a long time ago.
Yeah.
But they're going to cover it up.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to keep doing until they can't cover it up anymore. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, we said what we say. This is what we believe in, but you don't have to believe in it. Go by the facts. If the facts are wrong, fine. But have an open mind. But only go by the facts. And again, sometimes the facts are distorted. You don't know. But you got to go by the data. And so that's what we do. We go by the data.
That is a great point, and I agree with that 100%. And I do, what I try and do is just get people to look at things a teeny weeny bit differently. Because when you do that, it's amazing what you see, just a little different. So yeah, that goes into keeping an open mind. This has been wonderful. Are there anything, I'm going to have all the links to where they can find you below. So make sure that you go and you support Gerald and you support Occupy Peace. And you make sure, if you want to know what's going to happen, this is the man that knows all the future trends. He's been doing it forever. I have so much love and respect and admiration from this man. I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, and I feel the same way about you. And I thank you so much for what you're doing and how you're a champion for what you do in the real spirit of America, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the real American spirit. So thank you. And I'm honored to be on with you and to be your friend. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
I hope that you got as much out of this as I did. I always love our conversations. We really do need to do something in person. And until next we meet, please be safe out there. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.